but at the same time, we're school nutrition professionals. Like we have the largest restaurant chain in the entire country.
Do you ever have so many questions and no one to ask, so they're just wasting away on Google searches you'll forget about in an hour or so?
We had that same problem, and that's why we created the RD2BE podcast, a resource for dietetic and nutrition students looking for answers that their peers don't have.
We are students Macy and Emily and registered dietitian Carl Barnes. We engage in conversations and learn from RDs.
Join us weekly as we gain insight into the unique journeys of registered dietitians all over the country.
Welcome back to another week of the RD2BE podcast. I'm your registered dietitian host, Carl Barnes. This is our weekly podcast where we sit down with a different awesome registered dietitian each week to showcase the diversity of opportunity in the profession and really dismantle the notion that there's a traditional career path, to really show all of the awesome different paths that dietitians have taken, what they've learned along the way, and the advice that they can give to you as you're on your journey to becoming a registered dietitian. We're really honored to be sitting down with Bettina Applewhite today. She's a school nutrition specialist. She's done a lot of awesome things. So we're really excited to learn more about you, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I'm Bettina Applewhite. I'm a registered dietitian and school nutrition specialist. Got that certification a couple of years ago. I'm working now currently with Baltimore County Public Schools, and I am also a blogger for all things food, nutrition, and just really fun adventures in a culinary aspect of things. And I've been able to be featured on different podcasts. And one of my most fun features was on Top Chef Amateurs in 2021. I was a contestant to show off that dietitians not only, know food, but we can also cook food really well. And so I wanted to share that.
That's awesome. How did that happen? How were you able to get on Top Chef?
So I'm obsessed with Top Chef, the show. And so when 2020 happened, the world shut down, and there was a new season of Top Chef that was airing, and I had lots of time, just like many people in the world. So I was like, let's just start binging Top Chef, all the seasons. And I was watching it and I was going through and I was so excited. And so I told myself I would love to be on this show, but I do not have the skill set that these, chefs have. They're like James Beard winners, the restaurateurs, and I'm just little old lunch lady, Bettina Applewhite. So I said, if there was ever an amateur version, I would apply. And a couple of months later, I saw a flyer on social media advertising that they were casting for the amateur version. And I was like, well, I guess now is the time for me to put my money where my mouth is and see what happens. And I was just fortunate enough to be selected to be a participant for the show.
That's great. Awesome. So I guess what made you want to become a registered dietitian?
I've always had a love for food and a love for science. So nutrition was the best way to put all of that together. I was late in my educational career finding out that there was a such thing as a dietitian, and there was a nutrition that you can major in, because there wasn't a nutrition major in the school that I went to. I went to Hampton University. So, and when I started school, I was on be a medical doctor path, and I thought chemistry would give me the edge. So that's why I chose chemistry. But and that's why I chose being a dietitian, is because I saw that all the things that I was learning about the body, it was really impacted by the food we eat. And food is so cultural, it's so passionate. You show people that you love them through food. All your celebrations have traditions with them. So why not have the foods that we actually eat and be able to celebrate them, but also know how they work in our body. And I just thought being a dietitian and being able to interact with people and learn their food cultures and determine how that can help or hinder their health status, I thought that was just a perfect fit.
Of course. So you talked a little bit about your bachelor's in chemistry. So how did your master's in integrative bioscience and nutrition help you contribute to the RD credential?
So the bachelor's in chemistry, the master's in integrated bioscience, they both teach you how to be very analytical in your thought. You question everything, you don't take anything as surface value, and you keep asking why. So that makes you become a really good problem solver. Because what happens when we are dietitians, we're solving a puzzle because we're taking the foods that you like and we're trying to figure out how to adapt them to your lifestyle and your health needs. So it's all about asking that why, not taking away foods, but figuring out how it can fit into what you're doing and what your lifestyle is, because you'll find that people are more compliant with diets when it's similar to what they're already doing. If we're not making drastic changes to their lifestyle and you're making like gradual changes, you'll find that the compliance is better and the outcomes are better. So it's all about that puzzle piecing, asking the why, and always not taking things as surface value, because of course we don't advance until we ask more questions. So we always have to ask more questions.
Of course. So obviously you didn't, like you said, you didn't have a nutrition or dietetic undergrad education. So since you didn't do that coursework, how did you fulfill the requirements to sit for the, internship and then the RD exam?
So I did a lot of backtracking in going back. So I found out about, like I said, the nutrition major and this profession really late in my education. But I was able to, some of the chemistry and bioscience classes overlapped, and some of them I was taking at a higher level than an undergraduate level. So that counted towards that. There were some life experiences that I was able to apply. Like, for example, I went to Penn State University and they have a really dynamic, for my master's in integrative bioscience, and they have a really dynamic, like everything there. They have food science, they have a really good restaurant industry program. So part of the nutrition major to be fulfill those requirements is doing a rotation through their food service, like restaurant course. But I was able to use some of my actual work as a waitress and, to fulfill those requirements. Also, I did some TAing, which helped me to go back and fulfill some of those requirements. And I still had to take some classes. So it was a really busy 2.5 years of getting my master's degree and also going back and fulfilling all of those requirements. But I don't regret it at all. Like I said, it was really busy, but it was really well worth it. It was one of those first times where I saw that, like, chemistry degree, it's all about the theory of things, and you're learning equations, and you're like, when am I going to use this? I'm not going to be at the grocery store saying, all right, I need to bring out my graphing calculator to calculate something. But and when I was doing those nutrition classes, I knew exactly what I was learning I was going to be able to immediately use. And so that also helped me to stay motivated in the program and continuing to learn. So that was also really helpful.
That's great. So I guess, how did you get into public school nutrition?
When I did my rotation, I did my dietetic internship at Tulane University in New Orleans. So you'll see a theme here that I use school as a way to travel around the country, around the East Coast and the South. So I did my internship at Tulane University in New Orleans, and it was a short one. It was a program for dietitians or RD2BEs who already had their master's degree. So that's why it was a abbreviated program, a shorter program. But we did a rotation in school nutrition, and it was only a week of that rotation, but it was long enough to spark something in me and say that was where I wanted to be. I really enjoyed interacting with the students. I enjoyed creating the menus and being able to introduce new foods, because kids are in school, they're always learning, and have so much fun, positive energy that their positive energy is rubbing off on you, and it gets you motivated to want to share with them new things, new foods, of course, the fruits and vegetables that we want them to have so much. So it was just one of those things where I was like, this is for me. I didn't start off in that career, in that path, but I never lost sight of that's where I wanted to be. So I kept pushing for it until finally I'm here.
Of course. So I guess what's the fulfilling part about working in your elementary setting?
So the elementary setting is always fun because, like I said, the students have so much energy. Like I'm in an elementary school now, and it's quiet because it's not lunchtime. But in about an hour, it will be so much energy in here. Everyone is so excited. During the school day, the students have a lot of pressure on them. They're learning. They have, it's confusing. We have to sit still and be quiet and listen to the teacher. But, the lunchroom is the fun place where you get to interact with your friends. You have a piece of home, or you have from either the cafeteria, or you're bringing things from home. You get to interact with people, and I like the interaction where you get to learn more about each other and their food habits and what they like. And so one of my goals always is, if I'm serving in a cafeteria, is to get at least 2 students to try something new that they wouldn't like. They think they wouldn't like. So I would just say, just put a little bit on your plate. It's okay. Just try it. If you don't like it, it's fine. At least now you know you don't like it. But I always, when I get to a older group, like the middle school, I tell them they can try it. If you don't like it, it's okay. Try it prepared another way. Back in the day, not broccoli, but Brussels sprouts got such a bad reputation, right? Because it was just the steamed Brussels sprouts, and that's the only way people knew how to prepare it. But now we have roasted Brussels sprouts, and they're my favorite. And, so you may not like the steamed Brussels sprouts, but try them roasted, try them, shaved in a salad. Like there's different ways you can try the same thing before you exit out. And so that's what I'm trying to teach the students. And hopefully through food, they'll also learn to do that with like their neighbors. Oh, you may not like that about your neighbor because they are different this way, but there's going to be something else that you like about them, and something else that you can find in common. So you don't have to like make, everybody like each other, or you don't have to pressure people to get along. But let's just talk about food. Food is very common. If it tastes good, it tastes good. And it doesn't matter what background it came from, right? So that's what if we can do that with food, we can do that with people. So that's what I'm trying to share with my students. And we don't talk about the other, we just talk about the food, and hopefully those things will click and they'll be able to, get that on their own.
Great. So how do you balance 43 public schools, managing and running them, and then running a private practice as well?
So it's a lot of long hours and a lot of organization. Like I have to be organized. If I don't have a calendar, if I don't have pop-up alerts, reminding me of, oh, I have to do this. It's really setting a timeline for yourself and reminders along the way. Both of my jobs are like around the clock. I may get phone calls at 4 or 5 in the morning about a school situation, and I may, I do my home visits, I call them, or I see people in the communities, in community settings, and I'll do that over the weekends. So it's really just trying to find that balance, still finding time for yourself, but it's always a challenge. But usually if have too much downtime, I'm trying to find something else to do. So I don't have that problem now, but
Of course.
but really it's just keeping yourself in a pattern. And if it's fun and if it's, you're not really um overwhelmed by it all. You're not really saying, oh, I don't want to do this. I love my students. I love my patients. So they get me excited. I'm always excited to see them, and you can build those relationships. I have a longer term relationship with my patients. So it's always fun to check in on them. And they're like, hey, how are you doing? What's new? And they always have great stories to tell. But so it keeps you going.
Definitely. So I know that for the public school setting, you're working with children, K through 12, but for Applewhite Nutrition, I know you work in a community setting. So what does that population or clientele look like?
So Applewhite Nutrition has a couple different aspects to it. It hosts my blog, Bites with Applewhite, where I am really, it's just an online blog that I'm sharing recipes, I'm sharing fun stories. I was able to be featured on Top Chef Amateurs because of it. So those aspects I get to interact with, just really the general public. So I've been able to meet all kinds of different people. So the contestants from Top Chef Amateurs are from all over the place, all over the country, and they have really different backgrounds. There's a contestant from Laos, one from Uzbekistan, a couple from Bangladesh, and then of course there's some from LA and Chicago as well. So you get all these different aspects and you get to interact with different people. But also I do community setting. So those are those people who used to be institutionalized, but now we're, being a little bit more humane and integrating them into the communities. And so those are patients that may have disabilities, there may be mental disabilities or physical disabilities, and they're staying in a home. They may be your neighbor, and there's about 2 or 3 patients per house. And I go around and I do their nutrition assessment, create the menus, make sure that they're eating okay and maintain their weight. And that's also a great way for me to make sure I'm keeping my clinical muscle strong, because without that I don't really use that as much with school nutrition. It's mostly about food allergies and making sure we're doing menu planning and keeping aligned with the USDA requirements. But being able to have my patients out in the community keeps those clinical muscles and those knowing what medications and how they affect your nutrition, et cetera. I keep that active as well.
Great. So my final question is, if a dietetic student wants to get into school nutrition, what volunteer or work experience do you think they should try to seek out to better prepare them?
So my path was through the clinical setting. I started off in long-term care, and then I switched over to food service. But I was able to do that because I worked for a larger company that had multiple aspects to it. So they had dietitians, but they were mostly food service. Oh, I was able to advance into food service because my supervisors could see my interest in food service. So while I was a clinical dietitian, I had the idea of doing theme meals, because no matter what, I'm gonna love food, right? So I was working in a long-term care setting, and I was like, this menu, is boring. Let's jazz it up by doing monthly theme meals. And so when you suggest something, that means you're in charge of it. And because of that, I really enjoyed it. I was able to create the menu. I was able to get in the kitchen and help the chefs. They didn't throw me out. And so it was lots of fun. I decorated the dining rooms for the residents, and they really enjoyed it. So from that, my supervisors could see that I was ready and was interested in food service, so I could make that switch. And then once I got that experience, then I can go outside of that and build upon my food service experiences. For working with children, you can start anywhere with applying for school nutrition jobs and, child nutrition programs, and of course school settings. You could learn more about regulations for child programs, the CACFP, and I'm not going to say that correctly. I'm gonna have to look that up. But the CACFP program that we have in the states, you can see what those regulations are and start like working for those programs, or doing consulting for those programs to check their menus, etc., to make sure that they're aligned with that. There's different ways you can get into child nutrition. We have the state that monitors, of course, what we're doing. So, and we have the school districts. We all report to the USDA. So there are different levels that you can go into school nutrition, just like the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. There's also the School Nutrition Association that has programs, their local chapters and their state chapters. You can get involved in that. And they're always looking for people who can make presentations. As a dietitian, of course, you know a lot about food allergies, that you can go and talk to and do trainings on school nutrition staff for monitoring school allergies, because I'm in a very large school district and we have lots of school allergies. We have, of course, the major 9 that we have now, including sesame, but there's also those more obscure allergies like strawberry or chocolate, or even garlic I've seen. So, and yeah, it's amazing. I'm like, I don't know how I would survive, but it's making sure that they are being safe in whatever we're providing, because our requirements make sure that we have to accommodate students with food allergies. And we want to make sure that we have variety for them. We don't want to just always give them Czech cereal because that's all they have. But how can we be creative in providing meals for them?
Great. Well, that's phenomenal advice. And those are some, I typed them up so I can look at those organizations later, but that was just so much information. I really appreciate it because I want to get into school nutrition. So that was especially good to hear.
Oh no, I think it's a really fulfilling career in school nutrition. It's one of those things that you probably don't think about often, because we think of the lunch ladies and we're like, oh, okay, that was way long ago. By the time you get in school, you've forgotten all about high school and middle school, and you forget that that's actually a career, and there's lots of regulations with it, and they need dietitians to menu plan. They need dietitians to make sure those allergies are taken care of and looked at in a safe manner. So we need more dietitians in the profession, and we need people to see that it's not what you think. It's not that old school, way of looking at, school lunch. I refer to myself as a lunch lady because I really enjoy it. But but at the same time, we're school nutrition professionals. Like, we have the largest restaurant chain in the entire country. So, because we are at every school. So
that's a great way to think about it.
Right. So you want to get in on this, just come on. We're waiting for you.
Great. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.